Oh, well, hello, everybody. I'm back. Well, I've only been gone a couple of days, but I've missed you. I hope you missed me. Snuck a cat video in there for you in the meantime. I mean, that's something. Went and saw another live comedy show in an arena. I've missed the last couple of King Gizzard shows. Sadly, I was watching the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul thing on Netflix. Don't even really want to call it a match or a fight. I'm not sure what exactly that was we all watched, but I did partake, and then I've listened to a couple of albums, one that I had never ever heard before, and then another one I have not probably heard in 20 something years. So some surprising outcomes there. And then I wanted to compare, maybe not even compare, but just talk about a little bit of the differences, what was good, what was bad, what was better, who was best between Bill, Sebastian, and Theo. And then in a recent member chat, we were talking about different albums, and Tool came up, and then Percy Hill double feature, one that something I don't believe I had ever heard of, although I have reached a point where we're getting to things where maybe at one time I was aware of them or heard of them or knew them, and they're just completely gone, man. It took a while to get in one ear and out the other for some things, but there are some things that have officially went out the other ear. But I don't believe Percy Hill is one of those things. I don't think I've ever heard of Percy Hill double feature, so I guess we'll just start right there. And I haven't listened to the entire thing, and I don't really know where to put it. I mean, it was recorded in 1996. Ja Volunteer brought this up to me, and it sounds like a band that could have been playing in 1972, but also is like a band that was influenced by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's some really good guitar work going on. Kind of has this like mid 90s funk sound, which wasn't really authentic to like true funk, but there was something going on there. And surprising that I'd never really heard of this. Like, it would possibly fit into like a jam category. There is certainly a lot going on in a lot of the songs. I mean, just some of the track lengths, does not jump out at you as like mid 90s. It looks almost more like a Frank Zappa live album or something. Songs as short as 5 minutes, and then some 7.5, 8 minutes, and then you get over 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So, there's a little bit going on here for a live show recorded in the 90s. So I'm interested in hearing the rest of that and more. And, a little bit does have a little bit of a similar sound from song to song. Like at one point the song switched on me and I was not aware of that. I will include a link. I found a playlist here on YouTube that has, I think it's the whole album. See, that's the other thing. When I'm so unfamiliar with something, I'm like, I think this is the right thing. This must be what he was talking about. I know he talked about it was recorded in Boston. Ja, I think you said you went to shows either the night before or the nights after, something like that, when these were recorded. Maybe it was The Dead or Fish. I'm not even sure. I don't recall the exact conversation. And the other one was Enema by Tool, and definitely an album I thought was great. I had a Tool kick. I never became like a fool, like went all in. It was just like Tool's the greatest band ever. Or maybe I did, actually, for a brief time. There was a brief time there where I was playing some video games and rocking out to some Tool, thinking they were the greatest thing ever. And then at a certain point, I don't know what it was. I know Maynard's talked about them not doing streaming really hurt them. And possibly, yeah, he might be onto something, because there has been a long stretch where I have not listened to Tool at all. I guess occasionally they have new stuff coming out. I know occasionally they're on tour. I'll see something here on YouTube. I'll watch a video or something. I got on this kick where I was watching vocal coaches react to Maynard at one point. But the album itself, I have to say, I was shocked at how specific to the era it sounded. Now, a lot of that had to do with Tool changing the game, and then everybody wanted to sound like Tool. So there's a little bit of that. But there was also some, there was just some some early grunge sounds in there that I just kind of didn't expect. I guess in my mind, they were just like totally, like there was all this rock music going on in the 90s, and then there was Tool. Which was a little bit, was that to an extent, but really it very, very much sounded like a mid-90s rock album, which just surprised me. That was not what I was expecting. And it also sounded like, oh, wow, maybe this mid-90s rock was not as great as I thought. Thank God there was a band like Fish out there, even like a Dave Matthews Band out there, holding it down, somebody just not doing the same exact, just like hard riffs. I remember one time, probably around the time I was really into Tool, we stumbled upon some live band. They were actually out of Oklahoma City. Don't ask me what they were doing playing in the Dayton area. They were called Lure, Lure, and man, they were an exact copy of Tool. I mean, they could not have tried any harder to sound like Tool. But I did like them as well, you know. But now I hear that kind of music, and Maynard is still one of a kind. And I mean, the drums on Tool is pretty amazing as well. So they do separate themselves in ways. Maybe it's just the guitar riffs. I don't know what it is exactly, but it just was like, yes, this was about as like mid to late 90s as it possibly gets. I was a little let down, really. I thought maybe still good, obviously, but just not something I'm going to listen to a ton, I don't think. So, God, who was that? I'm sorry who the member was. I'm so sorry. I forget which member brought that up. But, yeah, I took a trip down memory lane, and I was actually lame. Yeah, it was a little bit memory lane. Not to bang on Tool, man. Tool's to be respected, no doubt. I guess I was just a little surprised that I didn't like the album as much as I thought I was going to. Like, it was a little bit, it was just, I don't want to use the word 90s generic because you can't with Carey and Maynard, but wow. What's the drummer's name, right? Carey? Drew Carey, right? I believe it's Drew Carey. Or maybe it was John Carey. I can't think of the guy. I can't spit the guy's name out right now. What is the drummer in Tool's name? Danny Carey. Is it Danny Carey? Yes, Danny Carey. Okay. Thought it was maybe John or something like that. All right, Drew. All right, let's try those jokes again. So speaking of jokes, let's get to the comedy portion of this video. Now, I would say probably if I could just overall just gut feeling, we enjoyed Sebastian the most. Or I did. I shouldn't speak for Mary, but I think I enjoyed Sebastian the most. Some differences were Bill's show was like, boom. Bill's show was like a machine. Started exactly on time. Opener did precisely 15 minutes. Bill did exactly 16 minutes. Lights on, goodbye. That I loved. His crowd was arriving on time. They did the thing where they took your phones. That was the only of the three shows where they took your phones. But as far as like just a perfect machine, Bill's show was clearly the best. It ran perfectly. And so a lot of that had to do with the crowd arriving on time. Ran into big problems with Sebastian with the crowd not arriving on time. The show had to start a half an hour late. And while I don't really recall Bill's opener right now, but I do remember he was like okay-ish. I remember him being okay-ish. Listened to an episode of Bill's podcast with him on there. He seemed like a good dude. And then Sebastian was next. Now, he was probably my favorite act of all the three, or even out of everybody we saw. Just like minute for minute, laugh for laugh, I would think Sebastian probably killed the thing. My only beef with Sebastian was, though, is he looked like he had bedhead. I don't know what's going on with Sebastian. I was distracted by his hair the whole time. And then I saw a short clip, which I don't believe was even from the Nutter Center. Same thing, the bedhead. Mary said something about his hair restoration's gone wrong. I was like, no, I don't think it's that. I think he was like sleeping for 4 hours before the show, or he just had a hat on all day or something, walking around the Fairfield Mall. So Sebastian's hair was actually a little bit distracting. And Sebastian ran a tad long, I felt, but he had to address the crowd situation. People were late arriving. The place was not even nearly sold out. Even now, it looked like Theo was heading in that direction, not even nearly sold out. But then again, a late arriving crowd. This is not music, people. People just walking in the middle of shows. Now, Sebastian's show was also pretty well oiled. He had two openers. They seemed like they might have done 10 and 20 minutes. The middle got a little more than the opener. Once it got going, it started 30 minutes late, but once it got going, everything ran smoothly. But they all had to address the crowd situation. I mean, the Nutter Center was about half empty, and people were just arriving late all the way up through while Sebastian was on stage. I mean, ushers people, it didn't matter where you sat on the floor. It seemed like the ushers were going to walk you right in front of the stage. I don't know. So a lot of that needed to be addressed, which possibly caused him to run a little longer. He's probably shooting for an hour, ends up going a little over. So his show, his actual pound for pound, laugh for laugh, he was my favorite. While I do love Bill and Theo, obviously, I just thought at this current time, their hour, his was the best, consistently throughout, too. And I don't usually love a ton of husband, wife, kid, comedian type material. And Bill and Sebastian both had quite a bit of that, as opposed to Theo. But then Theo, his like family material is almost talking about wanting one. And out of all the openers we saw, maybe this guy Lee Kimbrell might have been the best. He was the first guy to go on for Theo in Columbus, and then the crowd for Theo very late arriving. Again, we were like, wow, I thought this place was sold out. Like when I looked at tickets, almost everything was sold. But look, man, it's almost empty. And they had to start a little bit late, but once Lee went on, then like from Lee through 10 minutes into Theo, people just never stopped filing in. I don't know what is going on. It happened once in Columbus, happened once in Dayton. Bill Burr fans, they're right on time. I don't know. I can't hardly explain it, but he was perfect and everything was good to go. And then we have Bill started out both while Bill and Theo being in Columbus, Bill being Bill, he started out by kind of attacking Ohio State in the Ohio State football program, where Theo, he shows up and he immediately attacks Michigan. So, there's two different styles there, and they both went over fine. Theo definitely got a big crowd. And Theo, out of the three, he's been doing it the least amount of time, but he certainly had the like rock star factor. Where Bill and Sebastian did not. Obviously loved. People were so happy to see him. But there was just like I don't know, it was a different factor when Theo came out. And even his style isn't necessarily as like a well-oiled machine like Bill, where it's not necessarily just like joke after joke, but you could tell everything was really. And then a part of Theo's act is to make you think that he's a little bit confused or not sure where he's going, or a lot of the what can we do next? What was I going to ask you? He does that on his podcast a lot. There's more similarities between his act and his podcast than I would say Bill and Sebastian's. Barely know Sebastian's podcast exists. So I don't know. Traffic getting out of Theo was by far the worst. I don't know. Bill, that was the other thing. Bill seemed to put the money into just everything outside of the show. Like as far as taking your phones, that seemed to be the way to go, because a lot of people were on their phones the other two shows. And I don't know. I guess that's about it. I don't know what else I had. I'm sure there's a million differences. I'm not going to sit here and get into like specific jokes, but it was interesting to see Bill come out and be on the attack, where Theo like warmed up to the crowd. Not that he needed to. And then Sebastian, while he started out by having to address the half-empty arena and people still arriving. I don't know. I've talked for too long. I got to go. Boom. Thank you guys. We're out of here. I would say go see all three of them if you can. And then with Theo, there was a question of like when we bought the tickets, and then his podcast guest after the fact was like, wow, is this crowd going to change? Are we going to a rally? All right, boom, we're out of here. Did not. It was just a good old-fashioned comedy show. What do you know?